Hello and welcome to the Gipton War Room. It's been a while since the last video due to work and family commitments, but I'm back. We're back in Normandy. It's June 1944 and the British are trying to force a crossing over the river Laudelle. First of all, just a big thank you to all the subscribers and viewers, way more than I ever thought I'd get, as I do this for fun really, nothing else. There's been some good comments and critiques. Again, try and take them on board with this video. Tonight's game is going to be a points defence scenario. That's page 144 in the rulebook, with some house amendments added just for a bit of fun. Okay, so the game obviously does begin with the Germans occupying these two houses here. The rest of their forces are on the western side of the River Laudelle. Now they will be getting German reinforcements, and these are elements of the 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 12th Panzer Regiment. These will start to arrive at the end of turn 1 and then subsequently at the end of every turn thereafter, but only after a die roll is passed. At the end of turn 1 you need to roll a 6, at the end of turn 2 a 5 and a 6, at the end of turn 3 a 3, 4, 5 and a 6, and so on. If it's successful, there's another die roll to see what unit comes on as a reinforcement. So again, if the test is passed, be it at the end of turn 1 or turn 2 or 3, etc., you then roll a d6. A 1 and a Stummel towing a Flak 88 arrives. A 2 and there's a Stug 3 arrives. A 3, a Panzer 4 arrives. And then 4 to 6, you have up to 3 Panthers can also come on as reinforcements. Now the German player may choose one of the 3 road entry points for those units to come on, and they're as follows. You have A, B and C at the far end. When the unit arrives, it can't take any action with the unit that turn until the following turn, when it then gets an order die is added to the bag. However, if the British have a unit on either of point A or B, then the German players cannot bring the reinforcement on at that point. Okay, the British in this battle, it's the 1st Battalion of the Roundy Fusiliers, and they're supported by 2 companies of the Duke of Gipton Regiment and B Squadron of the 37th Royal Tank Regiment. They begin with a preparatory bombardment and can come on in 1 or 2 waves, entering from the eastern edge of the table, again anywhere along this edge of the table, pushing down obviously towards Tilly-sur-Laudelle and the river beyond. Okay, deviating obviously from the rule book in how objectives are come about. In this game there are 9 objectives, and they are obviously all the buildings that you can see here and the bridge as well. Again, an objective is gained or held by having a unit in or on it at the end of turn 6. And the objective values for the buildings are as follows, because they're not all the same. The bridge, house down beyond the river, the town itself, these 4 houses here, they're all 10 points per house, per objective. The chateau on the hill, the farmhouse and the church, again, they're all 2 points per objective. And again, the force with the most objective points at the end of turn 6 wins the engagement. Quick overview of the terrain. Okay, the buildings are going to be hard cover and block line of sight. In relation to the ruined buildings, if a figure's actually on the base or inside around here, again we're going to count that as being in hard cover. Other things that block line of sight, obviously the 2 small woods. Again, you cannot see through. We've also got some hills here that do give elevation, and there's the odd bit of bocage which again blocks line of sight. Everything else, the lichen again is just soft cover, and you can see over. The little orchard down here, again, that's just soft cover, doesn't block line of sight. Just a quick one on the table itself, and this is it says Geekvillen autumn mat, and underneath I've got some hills. Again, just see the contours there with polystyrene. And again, what I've done is I've actually put the Geekvillen mat on top of another blanket with the polystyrene hills underneath. It just gives it just a little bit of extra support underneath the mat. The roads, again, are my carpet system, as is the river Lordell down here. The two houses that you can see down here, these are actually both from Charlie Foxtrot. The bridge is obviously the plastic Warlord kit, as is the two or three ruined houses in the middle. This is actually a Christmas decoration I got from about a year ago from the range in the UK. It's meant to be done up as a Christmas house, but again got it and converted it a little bit, and it's now doubling as a chateau in this game. This building down here, it's just a 3D printed one I picked up at I think Partisan earlier on this year, and this is just a scratch built church that I've done myself. Come around this way, get a better view. That again I've done myself, just using railway plastic card stuck onto foam card inside. Okay, the German forces, the 1st Battalion of the 15th Panzergrenadier Regiment, they are all veteran and fanatics and led by Lieutenant Mons with 2 accompanying riflemen. They consist of 3 companies, numbered 1 to 3, consisting of 10 men, led by an NCO and an SMG, 2 light machine guns per company, 1 Panzerfaust and 6 riflemen. They are supported by the battalion mortar and spotter and the battalion Pak 40. They have possible reinforcements consisting of a Stummel with a light howitzer, an 88 flat gun with crew and spotter, a Stug 3 with a 75mm gun, a Panzer 4H, and any one of 3 Panthers from the 1st Battalion of the 12th Panzer Regiment. The British forces is mainly the 1st Battalion of the Roundy Fusiliers, who are all regular, and they are led by Captain Chard, accompanied by 2 riflemen. There are 4 companies, A, B, C and D, all consisting of 10 figures each, led by an NCO armed with an SMG, a Bren and 8 rifles, with one of the riflemen acting as, obviously, loader to the Bren. They are supported by a Piat team and the battalion mortar with spotter. They are also supported by 2 Churchill tanks mounting 75mm tank guns from the 37th Royal Tank Regiment, and the final supports are 2 companies from the Duke of Gipton Regiment, again 10-man units led by Lieutenant Hill and 1 accompanying rifleman, and again these units consist of an NCO, a Bren and 8 rifles. Okay, so the Germans have deployed. They've deployed numbers 1 and 3 companies in the 2 houses in the centre of the town. Number 2 company is held in reserve. Lieutenant Mons again positioned himself behind the hedge, in between himself and the mortar team. The spotter is situated in this building with a good overview of the approaching road and town, and the Pak 40 is hidden and dug in just on the hill, again with good fields of fire. Okay, so the British bombardment came in, and all the German units apart from the Pak 40 sustained 2 pins. Turn 1, and the British are leaving Lieutenant Hill with A and B companies in reserve. Everything else will be coming on in first wave. However, the first die out the bag was German, and the Pak 40 has gone on to ambush. British die, and Churchill enters the table, performing a run order. British die again, another Churchill this time charges onto the flank with a run order. British die, and the mortar team advance on, taking up position behind the church with the spotter in the tower overlooking the town. German die, and number 1 company attempt to rally but fail and go down. Not a good start for the Germans. German die again, and number 3 company do a better job this time, rallying, losing all their pins. British die, and A company run on, taking up position behind the church wall. German die, and the mortar team rallies, losing all its pins. British die, and Captain Chard advances on to the table, taking up positions in the church grounds. German die, and number 2 company just rallied, losing all its pins. British die, and B company enter the table at the run, flanking the Churchill. British dice, and C company this time run like mad down the road. British dice and D company enter at the advance as they go up the hill towards the orchard. British dice and the Piat team just skirt the hill, running up at the side of the Churchill on the right flank. The next 3 dice were all British, and Lieutenant Hill and A and B companies, all off table, went down. Final dice was German, and Lieutenant Mons rallied comfortably. Okay, it's the end of turn 6. German reinforcement roll, needing a 6. And they get it. Rolling to see what comes on. And it's a Stummel towing a Flak 88. Great bit of luck for the Germans getting reinforcements on turn 1, and they brought them on at point C, and now get an extra 2 dice added to the orders bag for turn 2. On to turn 2. Okay, turn 2 begins with the British advancing on a pretty broad front. All the dice were put back in the bag apart from the pack 40 that remained on ambush, and the first dice out of the bag was British, and the Churchill continued its run on the left flank. Okay, German die, and the Stummel pivots and advances, towing the Flak 88 up onto the hill next to the pack 40. German dice again, and the 88 unlimbers, setting itself up next to the pack 40 on the hill. A strong defensive position. British die, and the Churchill on the right flank continues its mad dash with a run order. German dice, and this time number 1 company do manage to rally, losing all their pins. German dice, and the spotter for the mortar can see C company advancing up the road. The mortar fires but misses, needing a 5 next turn. German again, and number 3 company go on to ambush. British dice, and from his elevated position in the church tower, the spotter can see the 88 setting up on the hill, and the mortar team fires but misses, needing a 5 next turn. British dice, and B company continue to run, keeping pace with the Churchill and looking to gain some cover behind the bocage. British dice, and C company advance off the road, lining the bocage, taking cover. British dice, and D company advance into the orchard. British dice and the Piat team continue to run alongside the Churchill. British dice, and Captain Chard issued a snap to order with himself and A company advancing towards the town. However, this triggered the ambush of number 3 company, who opened fire with 2 of their light machine guns with devastating effect. They scored 6 hits, hitting on 4s for A company in the open, and of the 6 hits, 5 kills, and also pinning the unit. A company fired back with the Bren gun, but again it was a near impossible task because they were at long range, moved, and the Germans were obviously in hard cover, so needing 7s. And when they did fire back with the 4 dice, no hits were scored. Devastating fire from the Germans on A company there. British dice, and Lieutenant Hill passed his order test and runs on. British dice, and A company of the Duke of Gipton Regiment passed their order test and also run on, joining Lieutenant Hill on the road. British dice again, and B company remain off table and go down, held in reserve. Final 2 dice are German, and Lieutenant Mons and number 2 company both go down. Okay, end of turn 2, German reinforcement roll, and it's a 4. That's not good enough, no reinforcements this turn. End of turn 2, and the British are advancing strongly, although A company have taken some heavy casualties on the left flank. The Germans are still in position at Tilly-sur-Lardelle, the town, it's a village itself, and now have an even stronger defensive position on the hill with the added reinforcements on this turn of the 88 and the Stummel. On to turn 3. Okay, turn 3, and the first dice is British. And the mortar fires again at the 88 but misses, needing a 4 next turn. British dice. A Company passes its order test, loses its pin, and runs into the building for some cover. British dice, and C Company advanced over the bocage towards the buildings in the village. However, as they did so halfway, it triggered the ambush of the Pack 40 that had been lying in wait all this time. Pack 40 fired, needing a 4 but missed, meaning that the C Company continued their advance up to the building. British die, and the Churchill very bravely advanced on the right flank, opening fire with both its medium machine guns at the 88 on the hill, which it could now see, needing 6s. +1 for long range, +1 for intervening hard soft cover, and +1 for moving. However, with the 10 shots, all of them failed to hit. British die, and the Piat team advance into the building. German dice, and again the spotter in the house can see down the road and could see A Company from the Dukes advancing, and fired again, needing a 6. It failed. Mortar will need a 5 next turn. British die, and Captain Chard issued a snap to order, ordering B Company and the Churchill to advance up to the bocage and open fire on number 1 Company, who subsequently went down. Turned out to be a good move because there were 21 shots that came in from B Company and the Churchill, needing 7s, obviously for them moving, +1 for moving, +2 for number 1 Company being in hard cover and then going down as well. So again, needing 7s. 21 shots, 1 hit, but failed to kill because of they are veterans needing a 5, but because they're in hard cover, that goes up to 6. So they failed to cause a wound, but did put a pin on the unit and forced it down. German dice, and number 3 Company opened fire again with their 2 light machine guns directly onto the advancing British A Company. They had 10 shots, they scored 4 hits, converted that to 2 wounds. Again, the British are regular, so normally save on a 4, but again in hard cover that became a 5. So two wounds, 2 figures removed, and a pin on A Company, who it's fair to say are getting a bit of a drubbing in the centre. British dice, and D Company advanced into the chateau and immediately opened fire on the German number 3 Company in the building. They fired with the Bren and 6 rifles from the windows on this side of the chateau and the doorway. They did score a hit, didn't convert to kills, but did put a pin on number 3 Company. German die, and having unlimbered the 88, the Stummel pivots and advances back towards the road on the reverse slope of the hill. German dice, and Lieutenant Mons again issues a snap 2, putting himself and number 2 Company down in reserve. German dice, and the 88 fires back at the Churchill that had fired at it only moments earlier. Not long range, but intervening soft cover meant the 88 needed only a 4. It hit. It then, with a penetration value of 7 against the Churchill's 10, easily penetrated it, and then on the damage table rolled a 6, and the Churchill burst into flames. British dice, and Lieutenant Hill orders a snap 2, ordering A Company of the Dukes into the farmhouse, while he himself advances across the field towards the orchard. Final die is British, and B Company of the Dukes pass their order test and run on to the table on the right flank as the Churchill burns ominously up ahead in front of them. End of turn 3, German reinforcement test. No, still no reinforcements this turn. Okay, end of turn 3, roundup, and the British are now fully committed in the attack. They've suffered quite a loss with the Churchill on the right flank. A Company in the centre again have had some crippling losses and are grimly hanging on to that building. Quite a lot of fires being put back at the Germans in the 2 buildings, but number 1 and number 3 Companies again dug in and desperately fighting. And the Germans still hold a very strong position on the hill with the Pack 40 and 88. Start turn 4, and it's a British dice, and Captain Chard issues another snap 2, where he himself advances up to the hedge. He orders B Company over the bocage into the wood, and he also orders the Churchill to advance and engage the Germans in the house, who subsequently go down, ready for the incoming fire. Okay, the British open fire with rifles and machine guns virtually at point blank range, needing 7s to hit, because obviously the Germans were in hard cover and had gone down, and subsequently scored no hits whatsoever. However, the Churchill with its 75mm fired HE at the house. It did hit, but only when on a D6 only rolled 1 casualty or 1 wound. However, with the penetration value and also the defence for being inside the building, that wound wasn't converted to a kill. However, it did put an extra D2 pins on the unit. So again, number 1 company is standing fast in that building despite some withering fire from the units advancing on it. British die. An A Company passes its morale test, loses its pin, and pulls out of the building to get some shelter behind from the sustained lethal fire that was coming down on it from number 3 Company in the building opposite the crossroads. British die, and Lieutenant Hill orders a snap 2, with himself advancing into the orchard and ordering A Company out of the farm building and again onto the hill behind the orchard. German dice, and Lieutenant Mons orders a snap 2, ordering number 2 Company into the house to begin opening fire on the British in the wood, as well as also ordering the mortar to also open fire on the British infantry that can be now seen in the wood engaging number 1 Company in the village. Okay, the mortar missed, needing a 5 next turn, but the machine gun fire from the windows did hit B Company, did cause 1 casualty and put a pin on the unit. German die, and the Stummel advances out onto the road. British die, and C Company go down, sheltering behind the building, again waiting their time to advance. British die, and B Company run up behind the now smouldering Churchill. British die, and the Piat team in the house go down. Next dice sees German, and the Pak 40 goes back onto ambush. German dice again, and the 88 also goes onto ambush. British die, and D Company continue to fire on the Germans in the house across the road. The Germans went down. The British fired with 6 rifles and a Bren, needing 7s, didn't cause any hits. Final die is British, and the mortar opened fire on the 88, needing a 4, but rolled a 3. End of turn German reinforcement roll. Oh, and it's failed. Again, another turn where there's no German reinforcements. Okay, it's the end of turn 4, and the Germans show no sign of weakening. The British attack has gone all in. Again, it's pushing on the left flank. The right flank now looks like a bit of a mess, with units disorganised, as the British attack seems to be coming to a bit of a halt. On to turn 5. Okay, to start turn 5, and the first die was always going to be crucial, with the British looking to maybe assault number 1 Company in the building. However, the first die was German, and it was the mortar. It fired needing a 5, rolled a 6, and B Company were hit. Again, another punishing blow to the British. There were 4 figures under the 2-inch template. 3 were killed, and another 2 pins were put on B Company. A disastrous start for the British. Okay, German die, and the Stummel advanced and fired onto B Company in the woods, who didn't go down, and it was lucky for them because the Stummel missed. British die, and Captain Chard orders a snap 2. B Company passes its test with his bonus and advances out of the wood behind the bocage for some shelter. He himself goes on to ambush. The Churchill fires HE at the building again, manages to cause 1 casualty this time, but also inflicts a further 2 pins on that unit. So number 1 Company now up to 5 pins, but are solid in the defence of that house. German die, and number 3 Company in the ruined house open fire on the British as they pull back, and B Company come under fire again. No casualties this time, but a further pin is put on the unit. British dice, and Lieutenant Hill orders a snap 2. He himself advances through the orchard to join B Company on the right. and he orders A Company to run from behind the orchard down to behind the bocage, trying to support C Company, pushing into the town. German dice, and Lieutenant Montz orders a snap 2, putting himself and number 2 Company back onto ambush. British dice and B Company of the Dukes run up into the top floor of the chateau overlooking the town. British dice and the Piat team, still in the chateau, go on to ambush. British dice and the remnants of A Company consolidate by going down behind the building. British dice, and again C Company likewise consolidate by going down on their position. British dice and D Company in the chateau continue to fire on the Germans occupying the building in the town. A Bren gun and 6 rifles open fire, needing 6s. Only 1 hit scored but no casualty converted, but a pin on the unit nonetheless. Number 3 Company up to 2 pins now, but still firm on their objective. German die and the Pak 40 goes back onto ambush. British die and the mortar again fires at the 88 on the hill, needing only a 3, but rolled a 2. German die and the 88 goes onto ambush. End of turn 5, German reinforcement roll, and they get it to see what reinforcement unit comes on, and it's a 2. That's a Stug. The German Stug reinforcement arrives at point B, and its order die will now be added to the bag for the 6th and final turn. Well, that's the end of turn 5, and it's looking pretty grim for the British attack. The Germans have not been pushed out of the 2 houses they occupy. They've now been reinforced by a Stug. The British attack on the left flank, A Company has been decimated, B Company has been forced back out of the wood. On the right flank we have C and D Company, which are occupying the chateau and behind the other building, with again A and B Company from the Dukes pretty ineffective. The mortar from the British has also been ineffective. Albeit it's the last turn, turn 6 to go, it is looking like this is going to be quite a resounding German victory. On to turn 6. First dice out the bag is British, and Captain Chard issued a snap 2 order with 3 orders issued. B Company was ordered to advance into the building but failed its morale test even with the captain's bonuses, and they went down. A Company were ordered to advance into the ruined building, which it did, as well as Captain Chard also ran in to occupy the building. The Churchill reversed off of the road behind the hedge and engaged the German infantry inside the house opposite with its machine guns. 10 shots, all of which failed to score any hits. The Germans also went down. Again, didn't receive any casualties. Can't do much more in the rest of this turn, but have secured that objective, that building. British dice, and Lieutenant Hill orders a snap 2 order. He orders the Piat to fire at the Stug, which it does and misses. He orders B Company of the Dukes to continue firing at the Germans in the house opposite. They go down. The British open up with 6 rifles and a Bren gun, all of which miss, causing no hits at all. All in all, bit of a dismal account from the British on this side of the table. German dice, and the Stug fires its HE at the ground floor of the chateau. It hits, but only resulting in one hit for the occupants inside. That's converted to 1 kill, and subsequently only 1 pin is also inflicted. Next dice was British, and this time the mortar finally hit, landing a hit on the 88. However, they went down, resulting in only 1 crew member killed and a pin being put on the gun. German dice and the mortar fired at the Churchill, needing a 6, but missed, needing a 5 next turn. British dice and A Company run back into the farmhouse, securing that objective. British die, and D Company passed its order test and continued the firefight with the Germans in the house opposite. They did score 2 hits, needing 7s, but couldn't convert them to kills, but did put another pin on the unit. German die, and the Stummel advances onto the bridge. German die, and Lieutenant Montz issues a snap 2, placing himself and number 2 Company onto ambush, again securing yet another objective for the Germans. Final dice is British, and C Company advance into the building. But as they do so, the Pak 40 triggers its ambush, firing its main gun, high explosive, but misses, bringing the game to an end. Well, the game ends with a resounding victory for the Germans, scoring 40 points and still in possession of the key river crossing at Laudel. The British with 26 points. Again, their attack, albeit went full in, dubious tactics, broke down on the left and right flanks, and ultimately doomed to failure, with the Germans occupying a really strong position on the hill, having some timely reinforcements, and ultimately winning the battle. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Any comments and critique are always welcome. I'll be doing another video, but it will probably be now in February 2023. So hopefully see you all then. Goodbye.